Men in Scotland were paid to stab women to prove that they were witches, and it was completely legal. Welcome to today's Dark Heart Files. This was happening in the 1600s during the Scottish witch trials, when fear and religion were used to justify almost anything. And this wasn't random. They were professionals, men known as witch prickers, who travelled from town to town offering their services. One of the most well-known was a man called John Kincaid, who claimed he could identify witches just by touch. And what they did was brutal. Women were stripped, sometimes completely naked, in front of groups of men, held down and searched for what they called a devil's mark, a spot in the body that supposedly wouldn't bleed and wouldn't feel any pain. And they didn't just check once. They would stab repeatedly, arms, back, legs, anywhere they thought they might find it, sometimes for hours and hours. And if one spot didn't react, that was it. That was the proof that the devil had touched them, and once that accusation was made, it almost always led to execution. But here's the part that most people don't realise. Many of these prickers were exposed as frauds, using specifically designed needles with retractable points. So they pressed into the skin, and when they did, it looked like nothing was happening. No blood, no visible wound, which meant instant guilt. And they were paid for this. The more witches they found, the more money they made, so there was no reason for them to ever be wrong. Some victims were pricked so many times their bodies were covered in small wounds, exhausted, bleeding, and still expected to prove that they weren't witches. And what makes it worse is people believed this. And not just a few people, entire towns, ministers, judges, neighbours, all standing there showed up to watch while they were searched, stabbed and judged in real time. Some confessed, not because it was true, but because they just wanted to make it stop. And now, hundreds of years later, we're still exposed to very similar judgment. That was today's Dark Heart Files. I will see you next time.